Hello and welcome back. So this is probably the first video, I don't remember, that I'm doing without the charts, without the screens in the back. It is because today I want to explain some events, some huge events that are causing a lot of headline risk for us, things that we're making money off. I want you to understand why those things are happening. I'm not going to take a political stance on it. You can judge yourself whether it's good or whether it's bad. Only thing I can do is explain to you why all of these things are happening, because there's a very good reason behind it. So first off, it goes back to the 70s with Nixon in the United States. When Nixon hopped off the gold reserve currency or gold standard for the US dollar, he struck a deal with Saudi Arabia, moving the United States over to a petrodollar, meaning Saudi Arabia basically guaranteed that they were going to sell all their oil and do all their business in dollars. And the petrodollar then has become the replacement for the gold standard dollar. And the petrodollar these last years has been weakened. It is on its last leg. There's de-dollarization going around all over the world. And it has become a huge problem for the United States. Because the United States, being the world's reserve currency, right, is the global hegemon currency. And what that means is a lot of countries are holding it. They're trading in the dollar. It's a standard currency. It is used for global commerce, which means, again, there's a huge quantity of it. The United States can print it more or less with impunity. There's some inflation, but there's nothing too bad. Anyways, so last year, this wasn't mentioned too much actually, was when Saudi Arabia decided not to honor the petrodollar deal anymore, which means that they started a de-dollarization concept themselves. And it's not a concept, what the fuck? Like, they started de-dollarizing themselves, meaning they opened for sales of oil in other currencies, more specifically the yuan, so the Chinese currency. I'll just call it the Chinese currency for a reference point, so it's easier for you to follow. But they started accepting the Chinese currency and other currencies as well, which weakened the U.S. position as having the world reserve currency quite a lot. And now I'm going to get to that's the whole backing for it, right? All that makes sense. And what happened then was Maduro in Venezuela, right? Maduro wanted to join BRICS, essentially, become a BRICS type nation, and he was already starting to sell his oil in the Chinese currency, which would have weakened the dollar even more. And now you can start to understand, just from those statements, why the United States decided to capture his ass, right? Exact fucking same that happened to Gaddafi in Libya when he wanted to move off the petrodollar. His ass got killed. That's what happens to these dictators when they move off the US dollar. They get fucking smoked, okay? Dead. Except he's alive, bro. He's in jail with Diddy. So he's having fun, I guess. I don't fucking know. With 6ix9ine as well. What a fucking jail that is. Like a celebrity jail. But anyways, so the de-dollarization continued, and the US was already in it, or is already in a very weak spot, as the Saudis hopped off their deal last year, starting the de-dollarization. And with Venezuela doing the same, you can imagine what the US thought. We saw these talks about it being a narco, whatever the fuck kind of shitty excuse, narco terrorism, whatever the fuck his indictments are. We all know it's made in, like, cocaine is made in, like, Colombia, sold to Mexico, and brought over the fucking border. And the fentanyl comes from China, goes into Mexico over the border as well. So, I mean, that was just an excuse. And after they captured his ass, they didn't even talk about it. Marco Rubio, Trump, none of them, they didn't even really talk about that freedom, democracy, that bullshit that they don't really give a shit about. You know, you see people mentioning it. Oh, the people of Venezuela are happy, they like it. Bro, you think they give a fuck? That's not why they invaded. They don't give a shit. It's to save the petrodollar. Because now they have access to huge swaths of this thick type of oil. It is a lot cheaper to extract than the oil the United States has. It is a lot more similar to the oil that, for example, Saudi Arabia has. That's important because as I mentioned to you, they hopped off the petrodollar, or they're still selling in the dollar, but they're also accepting other currencies. So it is a form of de-dollarization, and that is why they did it. People know it's for oil. People understand. Oh yeah, it was for oil, but they don't understand why. Like why would the U.S. just take oil? That's the further reasoning behind it. I want you to understand that, because it'll bring me on to the next point as well. Because we have three major things that are happening around the world. That's Venezuela, but that's pretty much done, right? Iran, and then there's Greenland. We'll get to all of them. We're done with Venezuela now. So regarding Iran, in the Persian Straits, which is just south of Iran, around 30%, 30, 35, kind of depends, of the world's commercial oil is being extracted. So the US, if the US was to, or is to, invade Iran, Iran will easily shut off those corridors, blocking, 30, 40% of the world's oil supply. But the US now has access to Venezuelan oil. So they want to use that as a bargaining chip to strengthen their own position. Because as of right now, the way it looks right now, a full-on war between Israel and Iran looks more or less inevitable. And if that happens, we all know Israel is going to bring in the United States. The United States is going to dust Iran. And with that, there's going to come the effect of, and I'm just saying it's looking inevitable right now. I don't know. I mean, they tried to coup them like a day ago. They attacked them with rockets, hoping the regime would fall. They had the fucking Shah of Iran making videos like, oh, I want to be friends with Iran. Put me in. No, I mean with Israel. Put me in as the fucking president. Right? So they're going to get blown to shit, is what it looks like. I don't know. Maybe they don't. Anyways, so when that 30, 40% is blocked off, that's going to choke the whole fucking world. Europe, the United States, all of it. Fucked. That's when that Venezuelan oil that the US is now in possession of becomes a lot more valuable. And they can strengthen their position, at least in the short term. Because in the long term, people see what's happening and trust in the US becomes fucked. People trust the US less, okay? So the US now is the owner of that Venezuelan oil. The biggest oil reserves in the world. They can now lease contracts for it, while the Iranian oil is being choked. And that is what is looking to be the major reasoning behind it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So now we've covered Venezuela, Iran, and let's move over to Greenland, because these are all following events. So as you know as well, there's been a lot of trade wars, sanctions, non-tariff trade measures between the US and China, as China is becoming more and more of a world hegemon. The GDP is on par with the United States now. They're becoming extremely powerful. China is really, really rising. It is growing rapidly. It is growing strong. It is growing correct. It has a strong manufacturing base. And it is challenging the United States in a lot of ways. And that comes with dangers, because a hegemon to the United States is obviously going to be a rival to the United States. And on Greenland, of all places, who would have known? What a fucking coincidence. Whoop-de-doop-de-doo. Nah. On Greenland, they have these precious metals that the United States needs to produce jets, fighters, different types of aircraft, transport, general military equipment, and other precious metals for other types of use, industrial use, that they can't get if China decides not to export them to them. That's why you're seeing all these moves. Now suddenly the United States is demanding Greenland. They're taking Venezuela's oil after Maduro says, fuck the petrodollar and all of that. And we're also seeing the Persian Straits that potentially might close, and the United States having access to the world's largest potential oil reserves that they can then use to export themselves. And also to remain in their position as the world's global reserve currency. I hope that wrapped it up for you. I hope you get a better understanding now, so that when we go through headline risks, when I read through them, you also understand it. Because I want you to understand things fully so that you know exactly how to execute on them. That makes everything so much better. Just like when you're drawing SR lines, if you just know, oh, it should touch 2 times, versus you understand, oh, that's a body, it's a stick, newer info, that's more relevant. That's a lot better. So that was hopefully a completely impartial explanation, not politicized or nothing, just hoping I can help you get some understanding for the events. With that said, feel free to hop on my Discord. It'll be linked in the description. There's nothing for sale there, nothing's monetized or anything like that. And that's all I've got for now. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.